Okay, I am ready to go. Uh, so, can you tell me how many of these typing sessions you've seen before?
Of yours,
Yeah.
think three.
Okay. Um, let's start with some values questions. What do you trust more, that which has worked before, or that which seems like the best idea to you?
This is hard because I'm very depends on the situation
Mm-hmm.
um, with pretty much everything. So
Okay.
if I can remember doing something and it worked out really well, then I might be more inclined to do that. But if the situation doesn't line up exactly, then I have to think about it a little bit and see if there's a better way or a different way to do it.
Okay. So I woke up 2 hours ago and I made a pot of coffee. I spread some bird seed outside for the birds. I fed the stray cat who came by, uh, and I fed the fish. And then I went to the bathroom, made a pot of coffee, had a cigarette, had a couple bong rips, watched some cartoons, went back to sleep briefly, and then woke up again for this. Can you tell me the same sort of thing for your last 2 hours?
Oh, the last 2 hours. I'm not good with time. So that'd be 10 o'clock. What was I doing at 10 o'clock? I was probably still like getting ready. Um, and I I threw in a load of laundry and I I fought with um my accountant's email to try to get his app to download, and that didn't work. So I ended up just scanning the stuff and sending it to him because taxes are due.
Right.
And I've been kind of putting it off and forgot about it. So it was time to remember to do that.
Yeah, I think
Um,
they give you a grace period this year, I believe, extra grace period. So
yeah, I saw that last week and I was like, oh, thank God, because I thought I was already like just way past.
yeah.
um, I'm not really great with certain deadlines of things.
Sure. Okay. When when you are uh, do you go to bed at the same time every night?
If I'm left to my own devices, no. But I try to follow like my husband's schedule, so that kind of keeps me around the same time.
How well do you sleep? Are you a sound sleeper, a fussy sleeper, or something in between?
Um, if I'm really sleeping, I'm a sound sleeper. Um, like I don't really
Is it
like.
easy?
I'm not one of those people that like any noise I'll wake up. Like you could like probably bang on drums with me and I'll still be asleep. But then um, other times I just can't like sleep, so I toss and turn all night trying to
So
go to sleep.
easier to stay asleep than to fall asleep.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Um, and how many meals a day do you eat? Do you eat 3 meals at a regular time, or do you eat when you're hungry? Are you inclined towards cooking, or do you do microwave stuff?
Um, if I'm doing something or anything really, I don't remember to eat until like my husband comes home and he's like, what are we doing for dinner?" And I'm like, "Oh, I should have probably figured something out by now." Um, but then there's other days like if I'm just sitting on the couch watching TV, then I just eat everything in the cabinets.
I
So
see.
it's all or nothing.
Okay. Uh, how much of your total time is leisure time?
Um, a lot actually.
That's good.
Um, I I do like as far as work, I do the billing for my husband's business. So when he remembers to give me the paperwork, I'll take like a day and I'll sit down and it'll be like a couple hours. And then other than that, other than taking care of like my animals, because they take up a bit of time running around with them. But other than that, I'm kind of free to do whatever I want when I want.
I see. What kind of media do you like to consume most? Movies, music, plays, books, something else?
Um, I love books, but I'm not allowed to read them because when I read them, I have to finish it like cover to cover in one sitting.
Okay.
Um, and like while I'm immersed in the book, the house could actually fall down and I wouldn't even notice. Like my husband comes in, has a whole conversation with me. I didn't even know he was in the room. So he gets annoyed when I go on a reading binge.
I see.
Um, I watch TV, Facebook, YouTube. Um,
What do you think about videos that are subtitled, that are in another language? Do you avoid those?
I, I avoid them because I can't pay attention to the movie and read the words at the same time.
Right. Okay. Um, my daughter's, I guess, boyfriendish person. I don't know exactly what to call him, but they act like boyfriend and girlfriend, but insist that's not their. Delilah insists that's not their label, but regardless, um, he he was suggesting to her the other day that they watch some anime, and he said, "Do you want to read some TV?" Which she shared with me. I thought was funny. Anyway,
It's true. Like that's I don't know. I can't focus on both at the same time.
it's a bit of a difference between Rachel and me because I like subtitled TV a lot because it's like I can read it faster than they're saying it, and then I can look at the pictures.
My
uh,
daughter likes subtitles. She watches everything with subtitles.
okay, so let's see. You talk about taking care of pets. So do you have a daily routine for that? Do you feed them every day at the same time?
Yeah. That's that's why I was waiting for you to ask like my morning question because I was like, I can do that because I have the same Groundhog Day morning every morning. Um, because I have three dogs at my house, and since they're Great Danes, they have to lay down after they eat for a while because of like I'm so afraid they're gonna bloat. So I have to time that just right before I leave to go to my friend's house where my goat and my horse is because she's on a schedule and she's like, I get there at 10 and that's kind of late for her because she's already like almost done. So I have to
And
kind of plan my morning
what do you
accordingly so that I can get there in time.
what do you do with the goat and the horse when you're there?
Well, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I just do the night shift. But on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I do the morning shift. So the goats have to be walked out from the barn down to their pen, and the pen needs to be cleaned and their stall needs to be cleaned.
Are you like a farmer or something?
No, no, just love animals.
Okay. We have a lot of animals around here, but they're mostly uh, wild or stray animals. Okay, so let me see. What's when you're engaging? Well, let me ask you this question: How do you feel emotionally right now?
Maybe a little anxious,
Okay, and how do you
just
think
because like this is
unusual
weird
for
for me.
you? Yeah, sure. How do you think I feel emotionally right now?
I would think you're used to this, and this is kind of just your normal routine and thing you do on a daily basis. So you shouldn't really be feeling anything.
Okay, so what do you think my conclusion from your answers to those questions is?
Um, that I don't really pay attention to my own emotions very often.
Well, I mean, that's certainly displayed on your face there when I asked the question. You're like, what a strange question. um, yeah, I mean, it would seem to indicate probably FE over FI. But that's just one question. So
Yeah.
um, let me ask you some TI questions. I'm going to start with some basic genealogy ones. Who is my mother's sister in relationship to me?
Your aunt,
And who's my father's father's wife in relationship to me?
your great or your grandmother.
Right. Okay. If only sparrows eat sunflower seeds, and some things that eat sunflower seeds also play baseball, is it necessarily the case that some sparrows play baseball?
You said all sparrows eat sunflower
I
seeds,
said
right?
only sparrows eat sunflower seeds.
Then yes, they would all play baseball.
Or some of them would, yes. Okay. Good. Let me try this. If it freezes, then the tomatoes will die. And if the tomatoes will die, Jody will be angry. But Jody will not be angry. So what can we conclude?
That it didn't freeze and the tomatoes didn't die.
Right. Okay. Um, can you break the task of making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich into 6 steps exactly?
6 steps.
Yeah.
Um, get the bread, get the jelly, get the peanut butter. Use a knife to spread the peanut butter on the bread. Spread the jelly on the peanut butter. Put the sandwich together and eat it.
Okay. That's pretty good. If you had to do a job for one full day, it was a temp job or something, but you, for whatever reason, maybe there's a relative really desperate and needed your help, and you had to do one of two jobs, which one would it be? Job number one is fielding customer complaints via the phone. Job number two is going around the building and fixing broken gate latches.
The customer one.
Okay. Do you think that you can handle difficult people without getting upset very well?
Yeah, I did it for years.
Oh, okay. Um,
That's what happens when you work retail. Everyone's pissed.
if if I if I'm a customer with an unreasonable complaint and I'm mad, what do you think the most key behavior on your part to calm me down would be?
Usually to listen, because a lot of times people just want to bitch about stuff. And then after they're done bitching, they're more inclined to listen to solutions or see what options they have.
So they really want to be heard.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had the microphone for 30 seconds and your advice was going to be broadcast on every channel all over the world and translated into every language all simultaneously for 30 seconds, and you were instructed to give advice that generally would apply to everybody, what advice would you give?
Well, first I'd probably have a heart attack, but um, hmm, probably to listen, like actually listen and hear what other people are saying, because a lot of problems are because people don't realize they want the exact same thing. They're just going about it different ways.
Interesting. So, how would you define justice?
I think it depends on the situation. some things like might be more of like an eye for an eye type of thing, but other things are like not that serious, and you can have some compassion and like some leeway on like what you're doing with it. Like
So when they
you
conflict,
can't apply the law equally to every situation because every situation is different.
okay, so when two values conflict, such as kindness and fairness, um, which one you should prioritize depends on the magnitude, like the magnitude of the unfairness and the magnitude of the kindness.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
As I said,
Um,
a lot of things are very dependent for me. Like I like to see all perspectives of things before I make a decision.
okay. So I'm gonna give you a set of statements of virtue, and I want you to tell me which is the most important virtue. Okay. Um, Virtue number one is seize opportunities when they arise. You know, those who hesitate are lost. Number two is don't rush into action. Make sure you thought something through thoroughly before deciding to act. Number three is um, it's more important to know holistically the situation than it is to deliberate out exactly what it is you're going to do. Because if you know holistically the situation, the single best path will occur to you. And number four is rely upon what's worked before. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You want me to repeat them?
No, I'm just conflicted on I'm picking the one I like the most off of that. Hmm. I think I'm gonna go with the third one, the holistic, and it'll come to you.
Okay, cool. Um, are there? How often does it occur to you that you believe you're right about something and someone else is wrong, but you choose to keep your mouth shut?
It depends because I um because I could think I know something, but I'd be open to hearing how they got to this a different conclusion to see if maybe I was missing something or maybe I was wrong. I think
Let
when I was younger, I was always right, and it was just
let's
everyone
say,
else is stupid.
let's say you're watching a YouTube video and somebody's saying something that makes you mad. I can give you an example of something that makes Rachel mad when she sees it on YouTube. When she sees people talking about manifesting stuff by being positive, it makes her mad. She thinks they're being too cheap and easy about the difficulty of life or something. I don't know. So, can you give me a similar example of something that makes you mad when you see it in a video?
Um, I don't get mad at videos, like because
What about politics? Do you see things in the news that make you mad?
oh, all the time. I'm actually in direct conflict with pretty much every one of my friends on politics.
Okay.
Um, but they're entitled to their opinion, and if I can convince them otherwise subtly, like little piece by little piece, that maybe there's another perspective there, um, I'll do that. Some people you just can't. There's no convincing, and there's no point in even wasting your breath on. So I don't know. A
Okay.
lot of times, if I get angry at something, if I'm around other people, I try to not blow up. If I'm home, I'll be like screaming at the pots and pans in the sink, like, who the hell left these here? Why am I always cleaning this stuff up? Like, can't you just do? I just left the room. The sink was empty and now it's full. Like, I'll just stomp around and like complain about things and bitch, but
How easy
I,
was it
I
for
try
you?
not to get angry in front of people because my anger can kind of get out of control.
Okay. How easy was it for you to learn to do the books for your husband?
Um, Pretty easy. I mean, it's QuickBooks, so it's not all that complicated. And I had done it before when I worked for a temp agency. They had put me in a place that had QuickBooks, so um, and I don't really get very technical with it because that's why we have the accountant. I just kind of, it's more of like a data entry type of thing. Like I just
Okay.
enter the invoices and send them statements and stuff like that, and then put in like any receipts we have.
Okay. How many uses can you think of for a bucket?
Bucket. Um, Obviously to like put stuff in. Um, you can flip it over, use it as a chair. Um, I don't know. All the things I'm thinking of are things you put in it, so that would kind of be already the first thing I said. Um, you could use it to carry stuff around. Um, I mean, I have a bucket I use a lot for a lot of things, but it's all like, put stuff in.
You could wear it as a hat,
Oh, yeah.
and you'd be known as Bucket Hat.
I feel like there was a cartoon character or something that had a bucket for a hat.
I don't know.
I want to say Buckethead or something.
Buckethead is a guitarist, actually. He's
Oh,
a
maybe.
somewhat famous guitarist. He wore a KFC bucket on his head. Anyway, so let's do some more extroverted intuition stuff here. Can you? I'm gonna. Have you? Are you familiar with Inky Pinkies at all?
Yes.
Okay. So
I've only been aware of them since I saw your videos, and out of the ones I saw, I think I only knew one.
okay. Well, let's try a couple of them, and then I'm gonna ask you to see if you can make up one for me. No.
I actually tried with my friend, and it took me probably 20 minutes. I finally came up with one, and she got it right away, but it took me forever to come up with it. So I'm not good at these.
All right. Well, let me try giving you one anyway. This is a old fashioned light um, thing that you grab onto, and it's Inky Pinky.
Ooh, candle handle?
Yes. And if you look behind you, you can see where I got the word candle from. Okay, now can you try to make up one for me?
Can I use the one I made up for her?
Sure, go ahead. Let's hear it. Let's see what it is.
What the hell was it? Oh, an unbalanced equine.
Okay, so that's a unbalanced equine. Let's see. Um, unbalanced. A I don't know. Something horsey? I don't know.
Wonky donkey.
A wealthy donkey?
Wonky.
Oh, a wonky donkey. Oh, I should have. You know what? That's a good one, and I just didn't consider donkeys are also equines.
Yeah.
More than one equine. I guess are zebras equines as well?
Yes.
Okay, but they don't let you ride them apparently.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I guess you can't break a zebra.
I mean, you probably could, but it's probably not good for them. They have short backs, so
Oh really?
and they're smaller. They're like pony size, so they would only be good for a kid.
Oh okay. Um. All right. So if I were to ask you to write 2 lines of a rhyming poem off the top of your head involving the word pillow. What would you come up with?
I'm not good with rhyming.
All right, let me ask you a different question. Um, if you had to drown either a puppy or a kitten, which would you drown?
Oh, I hate you for asking that question. Uh, can I drown the person making me ask that question?
That's a good answer. Uh, would people who know you consider you more of an extrovert or an introvert?
Probably, I don't know, because I'm pretty like keep to myself type of thing. But like if we're out with a bunch of people, well, no, I still kind of don't really jump in. Probably introvert.
Okay. So if you were going to judge a third party negatively, and you've got 2 possible problems. Somebody maybe who's working for you, let's say, and one problem is that they need to be shown how to do everything. They can't figure out anything themselves. And the other problem is that they um, that they have no they can't deal with anything new that arises. Anything that surprises them completely shuts them down. They can only do things that they've done before. Which one annoys you more?
They both sound very annoying. Um, Probably the second one, because at least the other one, if you walk them through it, then hopefully they have the base and they can go from there once they know what's going on. Where the other one, if they're just always constantly like, I don't get it, like,
Well, the other one is saying, "Oh, this is new. This is new. I can't do this. I've never done this before." As long as you give them things they've done before, they're fine.
I guess it would depend on where you were working because, like, if you're working retail, something new is always happening because every customer comes in with a different issue or problem or looking for something different, needs to be treated a different way. Um,
What do you find?
but if you're in something repetitive, then the new person is not going to matter because they're not dealing with anything new ever.
True. Um, what about the following? Somebody is has to be shown how to do everything, can't figure anything out themselves, or somebody's very socially awkward with everybody at work, but they're not in a customer position. They're not in a customer relations position.
The one that's socially awkward is the rest of the people around them like easygoing.
Um, I mean, it causes some problems. You've had to have a conversation with him about inappropriate touching.
Oh, yeah. That would probably be more annoying because I can't keep dealing with that. Like, you can't get it. If we've explained this to you once and you're still not getting it, like, that's just not going to work out.
um, how likely are you to have a yard sale and sell something, and then after the yard sale realize, I wish I hadn't sold that thing. I actually like that thing a lot.
You're assuming that I would be able to put stuff in the yard sale bin to begin with. Every time I get rid of something, it's like 6 months later, and I'm like, where did that go? Oh, shit.
Okay. Yeah, I
Usually
have
right
that.
away though. It's always like down the line, and my husband has to tell me, "Don't you remember you got rid of that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's right."
Hey, see, for me, it actually seems to happen like right away, where I'll hold on to something for 6 months, and then I'll finally, okay, I'm never going to use this thing. I'll get rid of it, and then I'll need it like the next day.
That's why I don't get rid of stuff because that's what happens.
Yeah, it's annoying, huh? Okay, so do you know where all your stuff is, though, that you do have? Like, if I said, where's your that one Tupperware container you like to use for melon, would you know?
If I use it all the time, yes.
Okay.
I might have a general idea where it is if I only occasionally use it, and if I hardly ever use it, then it's somewhere. I wouldn't be able to tell you where.
Now let's say you
I've
have
actually just had that happen.
you have a Tupperware container, let's say, and you've lost the lid. Now, do you throw away the Tupperware container, or do you assume that the lid will show up someday?
I'll hold on to it for a little while to see if it shows up.
Okay.
But if it's been like a long time, then I'm like, why do I still even have this? Unless I'm using it for something else. If I'm using it like where I don't need the lid,
do you
then
go?
I'll keep it.
Do you go? Well, maybe I'll need a lidless Tupperware container for something.
Well, sometimes you just need a bowl.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So then, but if I have a bunch of the same ones, then I'd probably be like, okay, well, I've been waiting for it to show up for a while. It hasn't showed up, so I'll throw it out. And then a week later, I'll find the lid.
All right. Let's talk about cooking. Approach to cooking. Are you somebody who cleans as you cook? Are you
Yes.
somebody who uses a different bowl for every ingredient? Like, oh, I got to mix soy sauce and salt together, so I'm going to put a bowl here for soy sauce, a bowl for salt, and then pour the salt into the bowl. No.
No, we didn't have a dishwasher for a really long time, and I hate doing dishes. So I've perfected the art of like using the least amount of dishes as possible,
Hmm.
or planning it so it'll fit in my dishwasher properly, so that I don't have to hand wash anything.
Okay.
And I
Uh,
clean as I go because I'm not going to want to do it later.
have you ever heard the hats question?
I don't think so.
All right, I'm going to ask you this question. Um, there's a jail, there's a warden, and he's got three prisoners, and he's going to play a game with them. He's got a bag with five hats. There are three red hats and two white hats in the bag. He brings the three prisoners out and he blindfolds them all. And he has them each pull a hat out of the bag randomly. It's either red or white. And it's like a little party hat, so they can't see their own hat, okay? Even when the blindfold's taken off. So they each have on a hat now. And the warden explains to them, if you can tell me what color hat you're wearing, I'll let you go free. If you tell me and it's wrong, I'll kill you. But you could choose not to answer, in which case you go back to your cell. Just like normal. And so he says, okay, Abe, first person, I'll take off your blindfold. And Abe looks at Barry and Carl, the other two prisoners, and he says, I can't tell what color hat my hat is. And he says, okay, we'll stay here. And then the warden takes off Barry's blindfold. And Barry looks at Abe and Carl. And he says, I can't tell what color my hat is. And he says, okay, how about you, Carl? And Carl says, I don't even need to take off my blindfold. I know what color my hat is. And he tells them, and the warden sets them free. So what color was this hat, and how did he know?
Well, I'm assuming when the first one took off his blindfold, he probably saw two red hats, because if they were two white hats, then he would automatically know that he had a red one and he could go free. So if those two had red, that could be said for the second one too. He could have seen that those two had both had red. So the third one saw that the other two people had white hats, so he knew he had red. But he wouldn't have known that without taking the blindfold off.
He did know he had red. You got the basic gist of it. It's the first person either saw two red or one red and one white.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the second person knew the first person didn't see two white. So he knew that if he saw Carl's hat was white, then his own hat must be red. But he didn't see that, so he said, I don't know. So Carl knew then that his own hat must be red. Um, okay. Yeah, you did quite well with that question. Even though you didn't quite get the whole logic of it exactly worked out, you did better with it than I did when I first heard the question. I gotta refill my cup of coffee. I feel pretty confident at this point about what type you are. So I will tell you when I refill my coffee and come back in 1 second.
Okay, well then I'm going to refill my coffee.
Okay. So I'm rather delighted to tell you that I think you're an ISTP. And I say delighted because I don't type very many of them.
That's very interesting.
What did you think you were coming in?
Um, Very confused. Because from tests that I've taken, like I always test all different, like all over the place. And then trying to read about different things, I'm like, well, maybe that's like I could see half of this type, but the whole rest of it, no. And then part of this type, but the rest of it, no. So I go back and forth, but um, that would not have been one I would have. Well, I've actually tested that I think once. Um,
Did you think you
but
were an INFJ?
I was typed in INFJ by somebody, but there's just parts of that that don't fit.
Right. So that's the
Oh.
best mistyping of you is INFJ. And if I weren't as good a typist as I am, I'd mistype you as INFJ myself probably. But you're much more ISTP than you are INFJ, as is evidenced by the NE polar. So your extroverted intuition scores in the blind spot range. When I ask you for different ways you could use a bucket, you you know one of the obvious slightly divergent answers is where it is a hat. If people can't come up with that one or a couple of it's something that's divergent besides just carrying stuff around in a bucket, that's pretty extroverted intuition polar. When I ask you to make up a poem, you deferred, didn't want to try to do it. Your self reporting on your experience with Inky Pinkies and your friend is consistent with extroverted intuition. The one you came up with is actually quite good. That's consistent with ISTP as well. ISTP, I would say, is the most intellectually underestimated type. They're the type that's much smarter than everybody thinks they are because they don't have a lot to say. They're not super creative. Maybe, I don't know. It depends how much they've been internalized that creativity is part of intelligence.
Yeah.
How often do people bullshit you and get away with it? Like that you're fooled and later realize you've been fooled.
Um, Not that often. I mean, unless I'm still being fooled and I don't realize that that happened, but I am kind of suspicious about like somebody says something and I have to pick it apart and find out like did they actually mean that or are they just saying that to be nice or are they kind of hey are they offhandedly making fun of you, like, oh yeah, that looks great, like when it looks horrible.
Okay, so you're a little worried about the accuracy of your extroverted feelings uh, readings. That's to be expected with fourth slot extroverted feeling. But the thing is, like when I ask you a question about which value do you prioritize, kindness or fairness, when they conflict, your answer of it depends is very frame critiquing, which is to be expected with TI in the dominant slot. And it's an example of how you're not just taking what people say and trying to understand what they want you to respond with and then providing it. You're insisting that they mean things that have concrete meanings so that you can answer meaningfully. So let me ask you the rooster or chicken question. This is a true story, by the way. There was a chicken in England, a hen, that was part of a flock of hens. And then one day it got one of its ovaries damaged somehow. And it started growing rooster's feathers. It started cock-a-doodle-dooing like a rooster. It, when a hawk would come around, it would go rah, 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 like it was protecting the hens, and the hens would go scuttle away. It would give them warnings. It would pick out little worm for its favorite hens and stuff, like a rooster does. So the question is, what was this, a rooster or a hen?
Well, obviously, it identified as a rooster at that point, but it started out as a hen. So
Okay, so that's the most parsing style answer you can give. Now, here let me talk about how different types might answer that question differently. So, if asked of an ESTP or an ENTP, they'll probably pick a side. They'll say it's a rooster or it's a chicken and argue that side because that's
well, it's not chicken.
okay. What hen? That's TI right there. Correcting me for assuming a chicken is synonymous with hen, whereas that's TI. Okay, you expect people to use words to mean things, right? You expect people's words to mean things. A lot
Well,
of
because
times,
when you're ambiguous, it like it's confusing for me
sure. Now,
because there's so much, like, you can go so far with something that it just doesn't have meaning anymore.
well, some people might say things like, "Well, I know I said that, but I didn't mean that," or "I'm not expressing it well, but I'm still right about what I'm saying," or things like that. Those kind of statements to you probably seem irritating because words mean things, people don't mean things. There's two basic perspectives on the world. One is that words mean things, and that's what people mean. Others is that people mean things, and words attempt to express what they mean.
Well, I think it's if hey, oh, FedEx just got here, so now my dogs are gonna go nuts.
At least you got a package.
It's probably dog food. um, I like when people are clear with things because I don't want to misunderstand them. Because I feel like I can very easily like get confused if and then start going down the rabbit hole of, well, did they really mean that, and what did they mean by that, and so on and so forth. So if they're clear, it's just easier to not misunderstand.
I see.
But it doesn't bother me if they're not. It's just then I got to ask more questions to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Okay.
And get to what they're actually talking about.
And that's the textbook TI move, is asking questions.
Oh yeah, I'm all about the why.
TI
Why are we
is
doing this? Why do we do it this way?
yes, that's TI. That's a TI dom for you. TI is all about the why, and it's all about it's all about how people justify their claims.
Oh,
So,
I'm the queen of justification.
so I'm feeling
According to my husband, I can justify anything, even if I'm wrong.
well. That's the thing about introverted thinking is. Sorry, the gardeners just got here. Oh, I hate the gardeners so much. Um, it's it's mostly negationary, right? So
Wait, I can't hear you.
it's mostly negationary, which is it's best suited to determine where other people are wrong, and you can use it to establish yourself right as well. But you're
Does
most
it make you always think you might be wrong? Because I have a issue with that. Like I'm always like, well, I must be missing something, or
yeah, that's extroverted
I'm
intuition
constantly
polar.
like I default to I must be the one that's confused or wrong.
Okay, well, it depends on the type of thing you feel that way about. If it's a social thing, that makes perfect sense with extroverted feeling. If it's an intellectual thing, like a position about whether something's, like let's say something like COVID, people tend to either have a position of anger about. Why can't they just use a rake, you know, or a broom? People tend to either be mad about the sort of alarmist, random quality of the response to it, or they tend to be mad about people being not fully on board with the gung hoedness of safety protocols. So, uh, it's like a TI Dom is much more likely to be annoyed by the inconsistencies of the protocols than they are to be annoyed by not everybody being on board. But regardless, they'll
Like
probably have
I
a position
understand
on it.
why because it's new, so they're still trying to figure it out, and like they'll come out with something because they're like worst case scenario, this will work, and then they will kind of walk it back because they realize okay, it wasn't that bad, so we don't need to be this stringent with everything. Or they'll say, oh, it does this, and then they find out later, oh no, it doesn't, but that's because it's still evolving and they're still like learning about it.
Okay.
And then as far as the people with it, I know people on both sides that like are polar opposites. And I don't really have an opinion either way. Like I'm not mad at either side. Like I can see which each side is coming from.
Do you feel not particularly personally impacted by it?
No, because honestly, I don't really go anywhere ever. So
Okay.
like my life has not really changed all that much. Like my husband was working through the whole thing, and I, other than having to wear a mask when I go out, I like the only place I go is like the grocery store or the feed store. So
do you have like
not
a
much change for me.
do you have like a 2 or 3 or 5 year plan?
Um, I have things I like want to have happen, but I don't really have a plan for it. Like I I I'm very conflicted with plans because I can plan something all out, like a generalized plan, but then when it comes time to like actually implement the plan, I'm just like whatever is going to work and get it like accomplished. So when you're talking like 5, 10 years, there's so many different factors that I just kind of like, oh, this would be nice, and eventually it just happens. Like I don't I don't know why or how it just does.
All right. Well,
Like
that sounds like SE tool and TE ignoring to me, which is again consistent with ISTP. Have you ever watched the Gen Xeal? Or his name's actually the Gen Zennial?
No.
He's an ISTP. This freaking. This is not a big yard, okay? My dad, whose house this is, has filled the backyard with decks. Unnecessary decks. So
So there should be less to cut.
right, they're not even cutting, they're just blowing.
Oh.
They just blow. They come here and they blow things around and they put them in the trash can. But yeah, so I feel pretty confident that you're an ISTP. Everything you've said so far is consistent with that.
My
What?
husband will be shocked because
What?
he's pretty sure he's an ISTP, and we're very different.
Okay, so how are you two different?
um, he's very like always got to be doing something, like constantly. Like he pouts if it's raining and he can't like go outside and do things. Where I'm content to just sit and read a book, hang out. He's like, no, we got to do something. Got to be doing something now. He's amazing mechanically. Like you can give him anything, and his attitude, like my vacuum cleaner stopped working. So he's like, well, I can't break it anymore, so I'll just take it apart and see if I can fix it. And he did, because apparently he can fix everything without knowing anything about it.
Does he?
He doesn't read anything. He can't even sit still long enough to read a magazine without getting bored. Even if it's like in his field of what he does, he's just like, he reads like a paragraph and he's like, okay, I know what's going on here. I don't need to do this.
He's probably an ESTP, but he could be some kind of STJ. I don't know. Does he tell you stories at the end of the day of everything he did during the course of the day? So I went to the store today and I got.
No.
Okay, so he's not an ESTJ.
He'll tell you like of all the stupid people he's met throughout the day and like what went wrong and that kind of thing, but not the mundane details, because nobody cares about those.
He's probably an ESTP.
Yeah.
Is he FI polar? Like, do other people's feelings? Your feelings don't matter. Does he say things like that?
Yeah, he's not real. Like certain people, he cares about their feelings, but other people, he doesn't. He's like, I don't care. I'm never going to see these people again, or I don't care what they think. They're wrong. They're stupid. They're
okay.
like, there's no point.
He's probably an ESTP. That sounds like an ESTP. And I bet that's a great relationship too. ESTP, ISTP.
Fantastic.
I bet it's fantastic.
We've always said like we don't know why or how it works. It just does, and like. You know, you see fights that like other friends or couples have, and we're like, I'll have that problem.
You know, being in a super peaceful relationship is an incredible blessing that you realize when you're in one how rare it is.
Yeah. Like we actually have to like, because fighting is like a normal thing. Like you get angry or whatever. So we actually will pick fights with each other about stupid shit. And it's like, he'll come in, he'll say something to me, and I'll be like, oh, you want to fight? And he's like, yes, Oreos suck. And then we'll bicker about Oreos for like until we get that out of our system. And then once it's out of our system, we're like, all right, and we just keep going, moving on. But like just so we can have some conflict, we provoke it.
So that's how STPs do it, huh? That's funny. It's hilarious. Rachel and I totally avoid all conflict. In fact, there was a time when Rachel was getting in a super pissy mood, and she booked a motel room for 2 nights to stay away from me so we wouldn't fight.
Oh no.
Isn't that kind of crazy?
No, that I couldn't. No.
Yeah, we genuinely never say a harsh word to each other. Not ever. But that's the difference between ISTP, ESTP versus ENTP, INFJ. We think that only thing that matters are the symbols and the words, and the actualities of things don't matter at all.
Yeah. No, you're in the mood to fight, we can fight. But it's never about anything like important or, relevant to anything. It's,
I I bet you two are a badass team when you're going together to confront something that pisses both of you off. I can just
yeah,
picture you
probably
both
not.
with your arms folded like this.
It's more like hold me back.
Yeah. No, you hold me back. No, you hold me back.
It's like, okay, it's kind of like we look at each other and it's like, okay, are you going to say it or am I going to say it?
That's great. That sounds like a great relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like ESTPs and ISTPs. My daughter's an ESTP, and every time I spend time with her, I just find her an absolute delight.
Yeah.
So, any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, queries?
Um, no, I mean, I'm sure I'll have some eventually because after I go back and process everything
Okay. Are you
and
cool?
TI pick it apart.
Are you cool with me publishing this? You'll get other people's
Um,
comments as well if I do.
yeah, you can do that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to publish an ISTP one because I don't get very many of these.
Well, thank you for your time.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good
All
day.
right.
Bye.
You too. Bye.